Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this New Fleet Europe webinar with the support of Free Now for Business. Today, we leave a little bit the pure fleet management context and we are going to look into employee benefits. In fact, what we are seeing across Europe is that more and more companies are interested to expand their vehicle fleet management strategy with new mobility solutions. This, of course, for several reasons. And so we thought, together with Free Now for Business, that it would be interesting to give you insights about how you can attract top talent, and this in the current context. So, welcome to the webinar of Fleet Europe with Free Now for Business. Employee transportation benefits, the secret to attracting and retaining top talent. My name is Steven Schroefs. I will be the moderator of today, but I will not be alone because I'm not a specialist when it comes to everything linked to new mobility benefits and also how to relate that to compensation and benefits, to human resources, and other categories within your company. So I will be joined today by two experts from Free Now for Business. And those two experts are Daniela Rocha Almeida. She is the head of employee benefits, and also Jose Juan Sanchez, B2B head of marketing. They will give you insights in the results of a survey that we organized together with them. And based on that, there is a white paper that will become available afterwards. They will give you insights in the main results of the survey. And afterwards, we will have time for a dynamic and interactive question and answers. And so you can submit your questions for our experts by using the chat function in this tool. So if you have a question related to mobility solutions, to employee benefits, to how to make the connection between fleet mobility, payroll, etc., this is the webinar where you can ask your questions. So please make use of it. And then, without no further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Jose Juan Sanchez. He is the B2B head of marketing at Free Now for Business. Jose, welcome to this webinar. I hope that you can hear me and that you are doing well.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I can hear you very well.
It's a pleasure having you. So, as mentioned, we will listen to you, afterwards to your colleague Daniela. So the people, they can ask questions because we have a Q&A. They can submit the question via the chat. And of course, we are looking forward about what you are going to share in terms of the secret to retaining and attracting top talent in this somehow exciting but also challenging context that we are experiencing today. Thank you very much. I'm going to mute myself. Also, make sure that my camera is off so that full attention is for you and your presentation. Thank you very much, Jose.
Thank you, Stephen. Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, good morning to everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar. We really hope that you get good knowledge around the topic of company transportation and how to retain and attract top talent in your companies. Before we start with, let me see if I can move forward with the presentation. That's it. Before we go with the content of this presentation, let me just spend 1-2 minutes explaining who we are and who is behind the content and the value propositions that you will see in this webinar. So we are Free Now. We are a corporate mobility company, and as you can see, we empower smarter mobility decisions, helping people to move freely and cities to thrive. This is the main core of what we do and what we are aiming for every single day. When you see this mission that we have and the things that we do, you may wonder, why are we doing this? Are people not moving freely? Are cities not already thriving? Well, maybe they are, but maybe sometimes in a wrong way. And this is what we are going to see during this presentation. Speaking about the cities, let me just finish our introduction about Free Now. telling you that we started building and expanding our multi-mobility offer in the last year. Now in Europe, we are covering most of the continent with mobility options on one click. And our mobility super app is available in 170 cities, and it is serving 56 million users that are enjoying our product. We offer the broadest service portfolio with the most vehicles across Europe to enable people to basically leave their cars at home, or sometimes to do not even own a car. Let me also say that in order to have this international product, we also have an international coverage with multiple offices and people working in different locations, from London to Berlin to Paris and many other cities around. And I'm very proud to say that we are 1,200 employees working here at FreeNow, serving our customers, and we have 76 different nationalities. That means that we are working in a very enriching multicultural environment, but also it shows that we come from different backgrounds and that we all share the same goal, which is helping the society and helping companies to be more sustainable. Okay, so let's go through what brought us here today. And basically, that is to show you the results of a survey that we did around corporate mobility together with Fritz Europe Smart Mobility Institute. Before we go ahead into the results of this survey that we did, let me explain you the methodology that we used and why we did this survey. So we completed this survey with 162 people belonging to different departments, as you can see over there, from fleet management areas to procurement, mobility, human resources, and other areas. And it is important to note that the survey participants represented over 2 million employees and over 600,000 company car drivers, which is really a lot. And in terms of industry, the biggest groups of participants came from the financial service industry, with 18%, and 17% were coming from transport and logistics. In any case, the participants belong to many other industries. Also, it's important to realize that more than 75 of the participants were corporate mobility customers with a global or regional mandate. And even if we did a survey in different countries around Europe, the majority of the participants came from UK, France, and the Benelux. So, why did we do this survey? We wanted to understand if something is changing around the company transportation benefits today. Why we were wondering this? Well, basically because we are seeing some patterns and some trends, not only in the society, but also in the way that companies are working nowadays. And for example, the first thought that came to our mind is if you take into account the post-COVID and the hybrid model that it is going to stay with us for the next few years, we started to wonder if certain traditional company transportation benefits still made sense or not. Also, if you think about how are we having meetings nowadays, so there is a concept which is called virtual sales, meaning that we are having many virtual meetings nowadays. But also, if you think about how far this has gone, I remember working in my previous company, which was a software company. We were selling projects from 40K to 100K, long sales cycles, so in solution selling approach. And when the pandemic started, we thought that, we were going to struggle a lot. Obviously, we struggled the first 2 months because we were all shocked. But rapidly, we understood that still we could even do very large sales, not even having face-to-face meetings with customers. So this means that obviously now all of us are very used to have these virtual meetings. And in that case, we were also wondering, does the company car benefit still make sense? Is it something changing around that concept? But furthermore, if you also think about the actual workforce at the companies, so we see many people from Gen Z and younger generations entering into the labor force. And these people have certain particularities. So they value, obviously, the paycheck. But if you compare it with older generations, they value also some other things. These people want to really find meaning in the work they do, and they want to find a purpose in the companies that they work with. And in that sense, all of them are very worried about environmental and sustainability issues. And here again, we were asking ourselves, does the typical employee benefits offers that we encounter everywhere still make sense, or is it something else that especially younger generations may value more? Well, these were basically the thoughts that we had to try to understand if these market drivers that we were seeing were having an impact or not in the company transportation benefits today. So before we go ahead with the results of the survey, we would like to ask you one question through the poll that we have here, which is basically if you are planning to change anything in regards with the vehicle fleets that you have, or planning to introduce new vehicle types in your employee benefits. To do this, you can do it through Slido with that QR code, and we will see the results. Okay, so as far as I see, the results are saying that obviously the majority of people is planning to introduce new vehicle types. And I'm happy to hear that, because it is very much aligned with the results that we saw in, well, now we are having 50-50, 60% saying yes, 40% thinking about it. Okay. Well, let's say 75% are saying yes, you are planning to introduce new vehicle types to your fleet or benefits plan. Some people is thinking about it, but no one is saying no. So this is very much aligned with the results of the survey. Thank you very much for answering. And well, let me show some of the results that the survey that we did to these 162 participants. So company cars, really, we see a big decline from 90% nowadays to 37% in the following days. And this makes sense somehow. If you think about company cars nowadays, for example, in big cities, people having to go to the office only 2 days per week, some other times even working remotely full time, having a car parked at the garage is such an amount of waste for the company especially, but even also for the employee. If you think about how companies want to eliminate waste along their value chain, how many efforts they do to really be more efficient, and especially when we are speaking about things related with costs and assets, which supposedly have to be productive, but they are stopped. I mean, an engineer will go crazy with this situation nowadays. So yes, it makes sense. Company cars, it seems to be a thing that will be used less and less in the future. But also, we found that most of the participants are seeing an increase in alternative transport options like scooters, car sharing, and carpooling. And this has also a lot to do with two facts. One, the younger generations, as we were saying, and second, how difficult it is to commute in big towns nowadays. So there are many cars around, and the competition for those cars are these mobility options that we are seeing here, but also public transport, for example. And it is more and more comfortable to, especially in large towns, to start using this kind of vehicles. So in the next 3 years, we are seeing this change in company cars, and we are seeing something which is called the mobility budget, which still is in a very initial stage. But companies are already thinking about incorporating these mobility budgets within their employee benefits politics. This is a market where first movers will have a big advantage because for the different reasons that my colleague Daniela will explain, companies will be able to engage much better with their talent, with their employees, if they really match their employee benefits with their personal aims and also with their, let's say, their needs in terms of committing to the work. So in 3 years, we expect that the mobility budget will be the most popular transport company benefit, and we will understand a little bit more about what is the mobility budget, thanks to my colleague Daniela. So Daniela, please, whenever you want, the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much, Jose, for showing us the main takeaways of this survey. And now this new travel trend, it's happening nowadays. So let's see exactly now what is a mobility budget. With a first question for you, of course. Have you heard about it before? Have you heard about the mobility budget concept? Okay, we're having a lot of yeses now. 80%, some no's as well. Let's wait a few seconds. We have more respondents. It's quite a new concept, but still it's being talked a lot nowadays. Okay, 82%. I think most of the people already heard about the concept nowadays. So let's see what exactly is the concept that we're trying to say here. So it's a very simple idea, actually. It's a monthly allowance that a company can give to their employee to support their private travel or their commute, mainly. You can find a lot of modes of transportation, and the main objective is to be more flexible than just a traditional transport benefit. So it's not only just a taxi allowance, not only just a public transport allowance, not only just a bike leasing program, for example. It's an all-in-one solution that allows you and your employees, of course, to have more travel options in the easiest ways possible. So given that, let's just see why the mobility budget is important nowadays and the way that the workforce is changing. We know that attracting today's top skilled talent is more challenging than ever before. And we know that there are candidates out there entering the market, new candidates, and companies are desperately seeking for their skills. So let's see how these candidates look like and what are the current and future challenges for the companies regarding mobility and benefits in general. So this is the first big challenge for companies. The candidate shortages are getting worse. The current worker shortage is already a problem. So this is just the forecast to continue to grow, possibly reaching 13.5 million by the end of the decade. So it's a huge number already. That's why companies need to plan ahead to get ahead, of course. It's crucial that you have your updating recruiting strategies to attract the new candidates entering the market. And also the employee culture, of course, needs to be amazing to succeed. Otherwise, you won't be competitive and you'll face shortage of employees within your company. So that's the main objective of the benefits world. And today's studies already say that talent is one of the biggest blocking factors for growth in companies. So this is a real serious problem that we should face for the following years. Let's see another fact. 27% of the workforce will be Gen Z by 2025. So this generation, new generation that it's out there, it's a huge slice already for the workforce, and 2025 is just around the corner. That's why you need to keep in mind that all our strategies should be taking this generation into consideration. If not, of course, we are simply ignoring 1/3 of our employees and future employees. Another piece of data, 89% of candidates aged 18 to 34, so Generation Z, but also the millennials, would prefer additional benefits over a pay increase. So there are a lot of companies that just throw money at problems when they notice their employees are not happy, or if they notice they're having trouble hiring and retaining. And of course, that's not efficient at all from a budget perspective. just to throw money, neither from an employee perception. So I'll give you one example. With 100 euro more in your salary, you'll be happy for sure for a few months, but you'll forget it quite easily. And with a good benefit, with the same 100 euros, you always see that gift every week or every month from your company, because you're always using it if it's a relevant benefit for your life. So you'll feel good about it. It's a very different perception from a salary increase. That's why tangibility is very important, and not only money in salaries. That would be a very, very easy way to tackle the talent problem, of course. So benefits are very good to boost morale month on month. Next slide, we can see that there is also a challenge when it comes to sustainability, a good challenge, of course, not only for the Gen Z, but also for millennials. We want the companies that we work for to take responsibility and to help combat this terrible climate change that we're facing. We want to be green as much as possible as well. And we want companies to invest more resources when offering benefits. So not just the traditional ones. We want meaningful benefits for our lives, but also for the planet. So there is a list regarding this study with the top 3 priorities when offering sustainability-oriented employee benefits. In the first place in the list is electric car subsidies. Then you have incentive to use public transport and cycle to work schemes. So you can see that they are all connected to mobility, the top 3 priorities. So it's very easy to connect sustainability and mobility. We should keep in mind, if we offer a mobility budget, we are also offering a way to be more sustainable. So your employees will feel very good about it. Next, regarding the Gen Z, once again, I'm sure we all have family members that are Gen Z and are always connected to phones. So they are very tech savvy, jumping from one app to another. And of course, it makes them extremely interested in new technologies, extremely skilled to work with it as well. They want the same flexibility that they have in their private lives, in their work life as well. So they want the freedom to choose, to travel how they want, when they want, and they want to manage, of course, everything digitally and in a seamless way. Given that, let's see now how a mobility budget speaks to today's candidates, with a first question that was also in the survey: what is driving the change? So fleet managers are injecting variety into their strategies. So the old school company car, as Jose mentioned, is year by year getting more and more obsolete, especially after COVID, as the daily life and traveling behaviors have changed very, very dramatically, I would say. So fleet managers are looking for alternatives to the company car, and of course, a mobility budget can be a really good fit for it. You can see a list here of the main benefits of integrating alternative mobility solutions, and I will deep dive now into the main ones. So flexibility is the main one, right? 75% of respondents find that the biggest benefit of alternative mobility solution is increased employee flexibility. Flexibility for employees means that people will not use a car every day. So they prefer to diversify and use a scooter for a short ride going to lunch, for example, a taxi to go meet a client, or car sharing for the weekend with friends. So flexibility, of course, will translate into employee happiness, which is the second factor with more relevance in this survey's question. So you can see here, 64% of respondents find that happiness is the main one of the main benefits for the mobility budget. So regarding this, the HR department is not only the acting department for happiness nowadays. So fleet managers, of course, are working together with the HR professionals to join efforts when it comes to new strategies for happiness that could also include new mobility concepts such as the mobility budget. Ultimately, of course, employees' happiness will lead to better company results, and you'll be able to better attract and retain your talented employees. And the last factor, last but not least, once again, sustainability. Sustainable travel, 44% of people find that it's one of the main benefits of the mobility budget. The CSR targets that you have inside your companies could also be met quite easily and faster if you adopt more flexible solutions, of course, because you have green micro mobility like e-mopeds, bikes, e-scooters, and of course you have more access to an overall electric fleet for taxis and car sharing, for example. So the sharing mobility concept by itself will be of great interest and value for sustainability targets of your company. Another question regarding the usage of the mobility budget to all employees or just part of it. So you can see here that 37% of the respondents say that they would give the mobility budget to all employees, 31% only the employees eligible for a car, and 32% they didn't decide yet. So a new mobility plan, like a mobility budget, means that companies can offer it to more employees. So it's not a benefit just for seniors anymore, but of course for everyone, and also these new hard to find candidates as well. One of the ways to increase the satisfaction and the happiness that we're just talking about is to increase also the equity on the benefit plan that you are designing to your employees. For a lot of people, it doesn't seem fair if I receive a benefit and my colleagues don't, for example. So it's important to maintain a certain equity when you distribute the benefits inside your company. The company card that used to be only for a certain seniority of employees can now be substituted by mobility budgets to all employees. And of course, you can adapt and tailor it with the budget investment that you want to give to provide to each employee. So this is actually it, is the end of our presentation. Let me just finish saying that employees are really craving the same freedom in their corporate travel as they do in their private lives. And of course, a mobility budget can offer the true flexibility that this new workforce craves. You can download our white paper here via this QR code, so you can find more information on how to retain and attract your top talent and using mobility in this case. Thank you so much for listening, and now we look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I was downloading the report, and I hope that all participants will be doing that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Jose, for the insights. It has become clear within the survey that corporate mobility, the transformation from a company car strategy to an alternative smart mobility strategy is more and more on top of the agenda of many companies. And of course, we would like to discuss a little bit more in detail what that could mean for those companies. And so if our participants have questions, they can submit the question via the chat, and I will moderate the Q&A together with our experts. The first question: do you plan to have this survey on a more regular basis? So, for example, to do it again next year or the year after, so that perhaps there is an evolution, a sort of trend that you and we can see.
Yeah, I think it makes all the sense, of course. So it's a world that's changing very fast. So we need to keep track of it, not just once in 5 years, because in 5 years everything will change. In 3 years everything will change. So I would say that yearly it's even more than less than 1 year, but it's a very good period to keep track of the trends that are happening nowadays.
Okay.
Yes, I agree on that. It's also part of our market research. We need to constantly hear the market so that we can also adjust our products and services to match the needs of the companies.
Okay. And were you surprised by some of the results?
Actually, I wasn't. I knew that I know that a lot of people don't know the mobility budget concept, but I
Hmm.
know that more people know, and of course, people that are related to mobility, they should know by now what is a mobility budget. And on that question, I wasn't surprised, neither on the other ones.
Okay. Jose, is there something that you, if you look at the survey, the results, etc., is there something that you say perhaps this is an interesting element?
Well, first of all, I was not surprised by the responses about the company car, obviously. But I have to say, I was a little bit surprised about how much people already know the mobility budget because,
Mhm.
believe me, it is a thing of 1, 2 years ago. So when that happens, that means that the market by itself is taking steps,
Yeah.
to solve their pains. So quite happy to hear that.
Okay. Now, going further with people are knowing the concept of the mobility budget, there is, of course, a difference in knowing something and successfully implementing it. Let's start with that. What is the first key lesson when you would like also to implement a mobility budget for your employees? Is there an advice that you can give?
I would say just ask your employees if they like the idea, and you will understand how impactful that would be for their daily lives and for their private lives.
Mhm. Okay. Um, Also, something that pops up is, of course, since the pandemic, we are now living, working in a somehow different configuration. Most of us are working from home at least a few days a week, and this means also that there is an impact, of course, on the way that we consume, use mobility. So, do you believe that corporate mobility and flexible mobility will really become more important as a company benefit and an element, even though that we are not moving as much as we did before?
Yes. So regarding the work life of people, we know that not every industry will work 100% at home. We expect that next year to see many companies introduce mandatory days, uh, of course, hybrid models. And we see a mobility budget mainly used for personal trips and as well, of course, commuting. Regarding commuting, there are 100% home office companies that we have been experiencing some companies talking to us that they still have offices and are incentivizing employees to go to the office more often. So they have these back to the office campaigns that are great, of course, to keep the culture alive, and they are trying to introduce mobility budgets to incentivize as well. And of course, we expect that the whole flexibility of having bikes, mopeds, scooters would not be so used for corporate travel, and of course, for more for the private lives of the employees. That still continue to happen, even though that we don't move so much regarding work.
Mhm. Okay. Um, a question that popped in, a question from Lydia Lozano regarding the mobility budget. Uh, in the mobility budget, there is an echo, sorry. Can you also include fuel? So, and if so, um, is petrol included if the employee would like also to use the car or the mobility solution driven by petrol for private reasons?
Sure, that's a very good question, an interesting question, and it makes a lot of sense because fuel is, of course, a mobility benefit as well. So you will be able, if possible, in an ideal scenario of the mobility budget, you will be able to buy fuel with your mobility budget and not only use shared vehicles, but also be able to buy fuel, to rent a car for a long period of time, for example. So that's the future of the mobility budget, and a very short future for us, actually.
Mhm. Okay. And so the mobility budget can be used both for business travel and also for private travel. That's correct, huh?
Yes, of course. So if we inside of Free Now, we related more to the private life of
Okay.
the employees, because we know that the corporate life is more related to taxis, for example, or car sharing. So more traditional solutions. Of course, if you want to get a scooter to go to a meeting, you can. But we know that this type of flexible solutions are more adaptable to the private lives of the employees.
Okay. Another question, uh, because we are saying that including mobility as a benefit will increase employee satisfaction. Now, we also know that people that already have a company car, they are somehow linked, touched to their company car. So, couldn't it be, for example, that if a company decides to shift from company cars to mobility budgets, that there will be a decrease in the user satisfaction?
Once again, ask your employees. So you should be able to adapt as well, and not, of course, if you have if you have to downsize your fleet, you should be able to explain why and the main reasons behind it. And of course, if a person is very attached to a car, I think if you can, you should keep it. However, most of the new generations would prefer a mobility budget over a car, and that's
Okay.
exactly what this study say to us. So the Generation Z and also the millennials, they don't have cars anymore as before, especially if they live in the city centers and the urban
Mhm.
areas. They would rather have a mobility budget with a lot of options, and even car sharing, so you can still drive cars, but with your mobility budget.
Yeah. Or have a smaller electric car as a company car, and then with the rest of the budget, you can add then the mobility solutions linked to your private situation and your profile.
For
Correct.
example, you can mix. You can
Okay.
mix. You can have a smaller car, an electric car, and a mobility budget, for example, for the same person.
Very good. Uh, Next question from Elena Malagariga. Sorry. They are considering smart mobility options as an addition for employees without a company car. But budget is still a main roadblock. Do you have any guidance, any best practice examples on how to convince, a very important element, how to convince leadership teams to plan additional budget for employees and mobility in particular?
I do have some ideas on that. There's one concept which is called ESG, Enterprise Social and Governance, which by which companies are going to be measured in the future, not only by public corporations, but also investors will take a closer look to all these policies in companies. So how is the company performing and behaving in that sense? So companies will be much more valued because of that, and this is something that the C-level people is very aware of it. So we are seeing more and more people in CSR C-level roles or also in ESG roles, and not only the investors, but also even consumers, customers. We will take a closer look at all those companies that are taking action into sustainability things. So I just wanted to mention this because this is becoming a strategic issue for companies. Yeah.
Mhm.
Daniela, maybe you want to add something?
No, it's perfect, Jose. Thank you.
Okay, so already from an ESG perspective, it's very important and can even become mandatory that you can show proof how sustainable you are. And there, of course, having also implemented mobility solutions, not only for the ones that are eligible for the company car, but also for the rest of the employees, can be a serious plus for your investors. Okay. Question from Sinika Ili Klemola. Um, about the mobility budget, the taxation, an example, the safety considerations and company liability. How should those be taken into account? Any advice there?
Taxation will depend on the country. Um,
Mhm.
of course, you have some countries with already good, not real good, but already good taxation for benefits, which means that, for example, in Germany you have a 50 euro tax-free allowance to give to your employee in any type of benefit. So of course a mobility budget can be that one if you don't use it yet. For other countries, the taxation is not so good, which means yet. So countries are evolving, which means that you will have a normal taxation like a wage salary, for example. Also, you have special taxations for public transportation, and of course, if you have a mobility budget with public transportation, you will be in most countries with tax free regarding those trips of public transportation, and also regarding the way that shared platform is sustainable. So there are a lot of countries that don't tax sustainable vehicles, so that can be one option as well. And I know that also for commuting, going back and forth to the office, you have special taxations in some countries, so reductions in the tax that the company pays for the mobility budget. So it always needs to be analyzed country by country, and countries are evolving a lot. There are a lot of public discussions regarding the way that the transports should be more flexible. The companies that they need to give benefits, so they should be less taxed. So it's evolving, and 1 year from now, on the next study, we will see the main differences.
Okay. And on the safety side?
On the safety side, of course, you need to partner with a reliable partner. That's the main. I would say that's the main question here. You need to really understand who are you partnering with, and all the duty of care
Mhm.
behind it. Of course, things can happen, and you should know that you are secure and that your employees are secure as well. So of course you should understand what are the main risks, but also the main benefits that you have regarding mobility budget with a reliable partner.
Okay. A question from Roberto Parlangeli. Of course, we often talk about the Generation Z, the new generation coming onto the work floor, but probably the ones that have polluted and are polluting the most are the baby boomers. Yes. And often in our surveys, even in our articles, we don't often talk about them and how to make sure that they can also, in the time that they still work, yes, perhaps change their behavior, yes, and perhaps that we can come with solutions also for them. So what would you say here? What can we do to support their needs, but on the other hand also make sure that their behavior is more sustainable and more, yeah, flexible and mobile?
Well, I would say that there is a need for some education in that sense, but I'm a baby boomer, yeah. And I have kids. And any person who has kids is really, really concerned about sustainability and the world that we're going to leave to our kids. So I like that question because I think we are all very concerned about this, and we are already taking steps in that sense. But maybe implementing these mobility options is also a way to accelerate that adoption.
Okay.
And
Yes.
let me just add here that it's important to challenge the status quo of the baby boomers. Of course, it's more difficult than the other generations, the recent generations. For that, you need to provide really good, really, I would say, really good substitutes. So if you just provide bikes, of course, the baby boomer will say, okay, no, I will keep going with my car. But if you provide a good quality solution with where you have car sharing with great quality, for example,
Mhm.
and other means of transportation with great quality for their time when they want to be more casual, I think that's the main that would be the main point to convince them.
Mhm.
So provide the same comfort with less cost,
Yeah.
and maybe you can translate a baby boomer to this new flexibility.
Yeah. So, for example, also a first class ticket on public transport or something like that, in some cases, could also be an add on for people that perhaps say, well, the bike or the moped is not really my cup of tea. But there are, of course, other solutions where also your organization, Free Now for Business, can help in finding them to and matching them with the right profiles.
Exactly. That's it.
Okay. Then to end, a few questions. Of course, when we talk about mobility, we think about flexibility, and flexibility in the current context where it's so difficult to exactly know when your next car will arrive is of course a great benefit. If you can add some flexibility, then you are not confronted with relying on one transportation mode, so that's great. But we also know that it can flexibility then it can bring additional complexity in managing things, and fleet and mobility managers corporations, they would prefer of course to have the most simple thing to manage. Yes, if you have more solutions within your policy, within your strategy, then probably it will also come with more complexity at the back end and more administration. First of all, is that true? And secondly, how to overcome that possible complexity?
So it can be true, but it shouldn't. So I would say that the mobility budget works best when you are integrated with only one supplier or one platform that has a large access to a number of different suppliers and modes of transport. So in this case, a company doesn't have to deal and with multiple suppliers and multiple integrations. They just need to deal with one, and of course you can do, and the employee would be able to do this via one app as well. So that's the main concept also behind the mobility budget, to not frustrate or overwhelm managers and overwhelm employees having to switch around between applications and methods. So they just have everything centralized, and that's the main objective here.
Okay. Then, if we talk about the mobility budget, where exactly can Free Now for Business help? Is it in seeing with the customer if the mobility budget can be a perfect fit? Is it in implementing the mobility budget? Is it in monitoring it afterwards and managing it? What can be the role of Free Now for Business for the corporate customers?
In all of those. So we can see where the client has more needs and what are the different types of needs, depending actually as well on the different types of employees that they have. So we can build that together with the company. we can implement it, and because we have all the modes of transportation available in most of the cities that we are in. And of course we can monitor, so we have a customer success team that monitors everything, and that will be of great help to understand actually the real impacts of adopting a mobility budget. For example, if you are actually attracting more talent because of it, if you are retaining more talent, and you will be able to understand how powerful this could be for your employees.
Thank you very much. We will end this webinar here. Jose, Daniela, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for answering the questions of the participants, and the participants, thank you for submitting your questions. We hope that you have found also this Fleet Europe webinar interesting, and we would like to thank again Free Now for Business for their support. I would love to end with mentioning that we are continuing our story about smart mobility, and we do that on the 16th of November at the Fleet Europe Summit, where you must be, because we will have a great event again in Dublin. But on the first day, the 16th of November, there's the Smart Mobility Institute. It's a live session from 10 a.m. until 3:30 p.m. and it's about implementing successful alternatives to car ownership. It's a session dedicated to corporate customers only, but with the support of some partners. And one of those partners is, of course, Free Now for Business. And they will have a thought leadership presentation about car sharing, e-bikes, and e-scooters. Is this the future of corporate travel? So, if you would like to meet live with Free Now for Business, you can do that at the Smart Mobility Institute on the 16th of November in Dublin. See you there. Thank you.